Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. We're going to talk about Bigby's Presents Glory of the Giants. We're going to talk about Bigby's Glory of the Giants and what the Giants represent in IRL. So, if you look at Dungeons & Dragons, you see this tabletop role-playing game that really soars past its competitors. It utterly crushes all of its OSR competitors and all of its indie competitors. Why is that? Well, it is my posit that the reason Dungeons & Dragons zooms past its competitors is that it doesn't function as a tabletop role-playing game. It really functions as a tabletop role-playing experience, right? And the reason for that is in 1974, Gary Gygax brought Dungeons & Dragons forward. And it plays on two levels, right? For dungeon muggles, all right? They're like, oh, look at this, a fun little game that we could chop goblins in half and kill dragons, right? And they go forward with it, and they engage with it in that perspective, right? But I think what really happened was Gary Gygax in 1974 really delivered the most powerful secular tool to explore identity that had ever been created in human narrative. It utterly transformed the ability, it utterly transformed how humans have the ability to interact with identity. Before Dungeons & Dragons, you were stuck with one identity. After Dungeons & Dragons, you could have as many as you could run with a good dungeon master. And that's transformative, right? And so Dungeons & Dragons has always been, the lower, the muggle layer. Like, oh, let's cut some goblins in half. And then there was always this far more powerful layer where people are like, what is being said by the designer here, right? And what Gary said was, hey, you're not stuck in one identity. You can be a different gender. You could be a different preference. You could be more courageous than you are in your IRL life. You can explore identities and run social experiments using this construct that I've created, and you can really create a transformative experience for yourself and for everyone at the table. And this is important and it's powerful, right? So once you look at that, once you see that, you see that this tradition has been carried on. Boop, 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 right? And the designers put forward Dungeons & Dragons, but they clearly are commenting on the IRL world, right? And so one of the biggest, clearest examples of this is Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. F. Wesley Schneider in Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen made massive statements, in my humble opinion, on that entire book is an exploration of tyranny, looking at Vladimir Putin's tyrannical aggression toward Ukraine, right? And Takhisis and the forces of the Red Army are clearly like making an analogy, in my humble opinion, to the tyranny of Vladimir Putin. And Solamnia, right, Kalaman, and the forces that fight against the Red Army are the heroic forces of President Zelensky and Ukraine, right? And that book speaks directly to that, right? So, when we look at Bigby's Presents Glory of the Dragons, Bigby's Presents Glory of the Giants, what do the Giants represent in our IRL world? When the designers sat down and sketched out, an extended lore of the Giants across every core realm of Dungeons & Dragons, what did they actually speak about from the Giants themselves? What do the Giants represent in our IRL world, which now carries forward Gary's tradition to, F. Wesley Schneider's tradition, directly to the designers who worked on Bigby's Presents Glory of the Giants, right? The Giants, in my humble opinion, represent American billionaires, okay? Now, why would I think that? Well, one, American billionaires are exactly what are depicted in Bigby's Glory of the Giants. They are these huge, epic figures that are poignantly sad, that have not reached their potential to reshape the world in a good and kind manner. Annam tasked all 6 of his sons with reshaping the world and using their incredible power, their might, and their powers for good, and they failed to do it. And so it says flat out in Bigby's Presents that that this entire book is an exploration of this incredibly sad, lost species who had the ability to reshape goodness and potential and beneficence on every core realm of Dungeons and Dragons, but failed to do it because they failed to use their powers for good well, right? But those 6 giants and all the people they represent and all the people they stand for, all the giants they stand for, right now have evil examples that have to be fought against, and they have good examples that can be allied with, right? So I think if you look carefully and read cover to cover Bigby's Glory of the Giants, you will see that this is an exploration of American billionaires, right? And what their duties are in the world, which ones should be allied with, which ones have turned to the forces of flames and can never be allied with, right? And what should be the response of the world, right? And so I think, when you look at, and it is a beautiful example of what Gary set into motion, right? Making something for the people who don't think on a deeper layer that they can enjoy, and for people who are thinking on a deeper layer to have this cultural conversation through a tabletop role-playing experience. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.